yours. Okay,
Right.
floor is yours.
Awesome. All right. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Kat. I am an alcoholic and drug addict for sure. Super happy to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to participate in my recovery. I am honored, always honored and humbled to speak about my struggles and situation. My hope is that, this might help somebody, maybe inspire you, maybe give you an idea that, the hopeless situation that you're in right now, whether you're sober or still in recovery, that, you don't have to stay there. So that you can judge me properly, I have a sobriety date of November 1st, 2015. That is not a date I chose. I tried to choose my date several times, actually. It never worked. I don't know why God gave me this date. I really don't. I truly feel that it is a power greater than myself that has done this for me. And for that, I am forever grateful. And, I qualify myself as an alcoholic. I also loved pills. I loved powder. I really loved anything that made me not feel me at the moment. So, really at that time, just whatever you had, I would do it. And, just as long as I didn't have to feel the way that I did at that moment. And, that can be even shopping or money. I mean, for me, that is my alcoholism. That is really just the irritable restlessness and discontentedness that I suffer from on a day-to-day basis, unless I'm treating my alcoholism. I grew up in an amazing home. My family was great. I have two loving parents. They both worked. I did not, like I had to earn everything that I had. My family, was about having a very strong work ethic. I have a brother who's 4 years older than me. And it's so interesting, because he and I really have different recollections of our childhood. And as I get a little bit more time in the program, I am remembering things differently, and God is changing my perspective. But I do recall, like, when I first came in the program and identifying a lot as being like very lonely as a little girl, feeling like I didn't quite belong, feeling like I didn't really belong to certain friend groups, or that I didn't really understand where I fit in the neighborhood. And just like really what I understand today is like feeling uncomfortable in my own skin, even as a little girl, which I didn't know was abnormal, right? Most of us don't, we just take our experiences and we just think we don't have anything to compare it to until we get older and we start talking about these things. But when I started to have these feelings of, sadness and just depression, my parents took me to a psychiatrist when I was 13, and they put me on birth control because I thought it was hormones, which it totally could have been. But I really, really identify with feeling that sense of just sadness. I don't really get where I go here. Just a really weird sense of not belonging. And when I was 13, I guess you can say I was a late bloomer because that was my first drunk. My friend invited me to her house for the weekend, and it was this huge event. Her brother was having a cake party. He was an older upperclassman. All of us had crushes on him. Her parents were going to be out of town for the weekend, and we were just plotting and having this. I think we were 3 or 4 years younger, so 6th or 7th grade. I don't know what 13 is anymore. Wow, that's aging myself. But I just remember we were so excited for this hugely anticipated event of them having a cake party. He promised that we could come and that he would cover for us as long as we stayed in her room. He would bring us the beer, and we would just be able to have a night to enjoy alcohol, but we had to stay, upstairs. So the night came, and there was all of this anticipation and excitement. And, the girls, I think, were excited about just being able to hang out with upperclassmen. For me, though, when he brought those red Solo cups in and I started to feel the effects of that alcohol, I realized very quickly that that was something I had needed probably 10 years prior. It was like somebody had taken my black and white world and put it into color for me. Like I had literally put an oxygen mask over my mouth and I was like, I can breathe, because I started to feel okay for once in my own skin. I started to actually feel like, okay, I don't care if they are judging me. I don't care if they're, looking at me in this weird way. I feel really good. And I'm, as the night progresses, I don't realize it at the time, but I'm not drinking like my fellows. The girls, are like feeling a little weird and they're getting sick and they stop and they pass out, and I'm starting to feel a little weird and I'm getting sick and I'm drinking as much as humanly possible. And it is I am on an all-time high. And then to top it off, I'm uh I kissed her older brother and it was like literally he had been my crush for years. And it was like, I had the best night of my entire life. Like I chased that feeling for probably 20 years. And the next day we woke up, the girls came to and they're like, man, this was like awful. And I can't believe what I did. I never want this to happen again. This was just embarrassing. And do you remember that you did this? And I was just thinking to myself, like, is there still alcohol in the house? Like, what are we doing? We still have hours left until your parents get here. And, my new MO was to maintain that feeling of freedom and really just to numb out the way that I was feeling for several years. I continued to party like that, not like my fellows, just continue to really take things to the extreme, hoping that, I would just find something that could make me, feel that way that I did that night. And, it was a strange time because I was like smoking weed in 6th grade, like starting to do weird stuff like that. Like I'm a white girl from like Denver, Colorado. Like we don't really do that. That's not like a normal thing for us, but I sought it out because I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. And then as I got into high school, I started to get into sports. I've always been, an athlete. I've always been into academics too. And I had a coach. I was the captain of a varsity team, actually from freshman year to senior year. And my coach would say, like, there is zero tolerance for drinking, zero tolerance for drugs. We don't go to parties. Like we are not the same, as other schools. Like we do things differently here. We are a sport. We are athletes, and we are separating ourselves from everyone else. And that was a hard pill for this girl to swallow because I was wanting to smoke weed in the locker room. I didn't really understand. And cheerleading was my life. Cheerleading was everything to me. And I was willing to sacrifice, everything because I just wanted to feel better. And so on weekends, I was drinking. A lot of times I was partying. Sometimes I was doing it by myself. I never really saw it as an issue. Really just, I saw it more as, that I'm the party girl, I'm the fun girl, and I have to hide it because, people didn't really approve of it. And I had this like anchor of something that meant so much to me. And, the big book talks about leading a double life, and that, we're kind of experts at it. And since some of my earliest, memories in high school, I just remember how easily I could do that, right? I could have this very successful athletic career and also in academics. I was in a lot of AP advanced placement classes. And I just remember, in like this weird like pit of my stomach that I was like this wild child, but I had to appear a certain way. And just was this very like weird tension between like what I really wanted to do and what I knew was right. And so when it got time to me graduating, I was really, mostly my mom was concerned that I wasn't going to handle myself in college because she saw the flip side. She saw me coming home drunk. She saw me, driving under the influence sometimes, or like found alcohol in my car. And she would just tell me that college was going to be an absolute nightmare for me, and instilled a lot of fear in me. And I was not planning on cheering in college or doing any sports, so I knew that I wouldn't really have that anchor. And God put an amazing man in my life, and I married a preacher's son. We got engaged when I was 19, and we met right before I went to college, and I really kind of gave my life to the church. And not that that wasn't authentic, it totally was transformative for me. However, I just remember feeling that same tension as I did before, right? Like I would go to church and it was almost like this feeling of that I didn't really feel the way that they had felt. Like other people were like in church and having this like amazing experience. And I almost felt like I was having imposter syndrome. And I didn't really know about alcoholism. We had never talked about it in my family. It had never really come up as something that was like a genetic disease. I really still just believed that I was this partier. And so I remember we would have his family over for college. Like we'd have dinner at our house. I was a Christian woman in college, and his family would bring a bottle of wine, or we would buy one bottle of wine, and I would have one glass and just like be looking at everyone else's glass the entire time. Like, what are we doing? Are you going to finish that? Is there another bottle in the house? Like, what? Oh, hold on. Is she really going to waste that entire glass? And it ruined my night. It literally, I would just obsess about the alcohol that was still on the table or not on the table or whatever. And so it got to the point where I was just like, it's like, Lay's, you can't have just one. So I just stopped having alcohol. And I had no idea that like alcoholism is the obsession of the mind. I really thought that it had something to do with the quantity, right? And that is like, if anything, times during college when I limited the amount that I took, and then I was able to take an inventory of what was going on through my mind. Like a normal person doesn't have that mental obsession. They're able to just have one and leave it or drink for the taste. And so I stopped drinking. And then, when I got into, I graduated from college and I got a really great job that actually allowed me and required me to travel and entertain clients. And now, it was popping because I didn't know that our alcoholism is progressive, fatal, and really just continues to, they say it's, in the parking lot doing push-ups, whether I'm drinking or not, it's waiting for me. And it has just been in remission this whole time. And so when I start to drink as I graduate college, I'm just lighting things on fire. I literally started to extend my trips. I started to not come home at night. I started to act in these ways that were not in alignment with who I was, but I convinced myself these are just my wild oats that I need to sow. This is just the stuff that, I didn't get to do in college. I didn't get to do in high school because I had to hide it all the time. And unfortunately, I, convinced that man that I wasn't the right woman for him and that we got married too young. And he fought really hard for me and did not want to divorce me, and really actually insisted that I went to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, which I didn't even remember till about 2 years ago, as funny as that is. I totally blacked that out. I went to my first meeting in my 20s and I was pissed, and I sat in the back and I was like, this is the weirdest thing. I don't belong here. But whatever, I'll do it for you. And I put this poor man through hell and finally convinced him to divorce me. And then it was on, because now I had no husband, I had no sports, and it was really this feeling of I'm free, right? And I tend to like tell myself that freedom is being able to do anything that I want whenever I want, but really that's just lawlessness. And it led me to some really, really dark places. And I was pissed at God. I really was. I was like, where were you, God? Like, I married a preacher's son. I got baptized. I was helping in the church. And like, I thought I was supposed to find God in church. Like, okay, fine. If I can't find you in church, then I'm going to go try to find you, at the bottom of the bottle or in a sack of pills, or, maybe I'll have a spiritual experience with some cocaine or Molly. And I did that for about 7 years. And, because I'm type A personality and I have, I'm extremely driven and I have a really amazing work ethic that I got from my family, I never really found myself without a job. That doesn't mean that I wasn't fired or I didn't totally fuck off opportunities that probably could have been life-changing. I just always hustled. That's always been my thing. And so I, again, rationalized my drinking, my behavior, because I said, well, I've got a job and I've never been to jail. I never got a DUI. I have a degree, like I'm good. And I just continued to find myself jumping from, relationship to state to career. I started doing like bodybuilding. I started to just do weird things because that is what my alcoholism looks like. It is like I can bring everything to the altar and sacrifice everything to my alcoholism, thinking, oh, it's just this next thing, right? It's just that next job. It's just that next man. It's just that next, relationship or plastic surgery or whatever it is. And it's never enough. My alcoholism wants me dead and drunk. It will settle for drunk. And so, I really struggled with this like feeling of, hey, am I really an alcoholic? I would be able to stop sometimes for like a week, or I would like go, to a wedding and I would tell myself I'm not going to drink. And I would, probably 10% of the time actually be able to do that. I was also, doing Molly in the bathroom, but, I never actually talked about that. And, I would just tell myself like, oh, I can have just one. So that makes me a non-alcoholic. Right. And, virgins don't question if they're pregnant. Like I really toyed with the thought of alcoholism far too much to not be an alcoholic. My non-alcoholics don't even question if they're alcoholic. They just know. And, I got myself into a situation towards the end of my alcoholism. And I was working at this supplement company in Atlanta. And, as I don't know if you can relate, but we get into this place where we start to attract people and opportunities really based on the energy that we're putting out. And I, was putting out crazy energy because we had an open bar at our work. There were pills and powder everywhere. It was really encouraged that we party with clients or we hang out with clients and spend time with them in strip clubs and bars. And that's where deals get done. I was flying back and forth to Vegas. And I had this amazing friend who I love to party with. I call him Snaggletooth because he's long in the tooth, older dude, one of the greatest sales guys I know. And I remember, they talk about these moments of clarity where we come into, whether it happens before or after we get sober, but it's like this, like, like just a message from the divine or from the universe or from God. And really was like an eye opener. And one of them for me was I went into Snaggletooth's office. And there was a pile of powder on his desk. And sometimes he would sleep at his desk. Sometimes he'd sleep under his desk. I mean, we would be out all hours. Like he was really kind of known as the office, like alcoholic. And I went into his office. He was on the phone and sat right in front of him. And I just did like the whole pile, just mainlined it. And he stopped the conversation that he had on the phone and he dropped the phone. He's like, you have a problem. I was like, I have a problem. Like, do you even have an address? You slept here last night. I have a degree. I have two parents that I, grew up in a home that's not separate families, and like just rationalize my behavior. And I had no idea, how monumental that moment would be later, because he was somebody that I really considered to be kind of the worst, and found myself, him saying to me like, wow, you have an issue. So my issue was not me. Obviously it was my place. So I moved to California. I said, I'm going to get out of this weird industry. I need to go back into business and software and be more conservative. And I'm going to move to a beach town and be by my brother and his kids. And I wrote myself this letter on my way to California. And I could have passed a lie detector test that I was not going to drink, that I was going to come here and I was going to have a fresh start. And I said that, this is the time, this is the place, starting things over. And I landed in California the next day, was unpacking my stuff. My pod was still in my driveway. And these two guys walked by with red Solo cups and cornhole. And they're like, "Hey, are you new?" I'm like, "Yes." Like, "Come on over." That night, hook up with the local drug dealer, because I literally have Bluetooth for drug dealers. Like, even in sobriety, like, I'll find you, right? I'll find you. You'll find me. You're just my people. I love you. And he and I ended up being together for a few months. My brother and his wife and his beautiful children, had to see front row some like really gnarly stuff. And it was incredibly damaging to our relationship. So, I'll fast forward. I get into another really tumultuous relationship. I was living in Park City at the time. I was drinking daily. I was literally wanting to kill myself, but didn't have the balls to do it, and was absolutely hopeless, and was like, is this it? Like, waking up every single day, just like, is this it? Is this really it? And just drinking enough to get through the day, and just waking up thinking, man, I just got to make it to like 9:30 tonight, where I can, pass out. I can take some night sedatives and just get through the day. Me and this guy get in a huge fight. And I am about to drive home to California, and out of nowhere, I get a call from Snaggletooth. And it had probably been 2 years at this point, out of nowhere. And he's calling to check up on me, because that's what he does. He's like, "Hey kid, how are you?" And I'm lying. "Oh, I'm great. I have all my stuff in the back of my car. I'm bawling. I'm scared to death. I'm like, I'm barely holding it to get together, and telling him, "Oh my gosh, I'm great. I'm thriving." And, he's like, "That's great. I'm actually a year sober." I was like, "What? Oh, you mean like from Coke and like ecstasy?" He's like, "No, from everything." I was like, "What do you mean? Why?" It's like, "Because I don't know. It's just amazing. My life is amazing." He's like, "I tried to stop for a really long time, but I had to get down to the causes and conditions." Those were his exact words. And they rung so true to me, because I had tried to stop for so long, and I just couldn't stay stopped. I couldn't. And I had no idea what I was going through. At the time, I had no idea that I was up against this thing called alcoholism, that is like soul sickness, and that literally is threefold, right? It's body, mind, and soul. And that, I really had no idea that, like, I had lost the power of choice to drink and use. I thought that when I woke up in the morning and I took swigs of vodka from the freezer, that I was doing it because I was sad. I was doing it because I was, hopeless. But really what had happened to me is that I had lost the power of choice, and that I was going to drink no matter what, unless I found a spiritual connection. And so I end up driving home to California. I meet with this amazing woman who is pretty much the only person that would talk to me at that time. She suggested that I start going to 12-step meetings. And I'm like, "You're insane. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, it commit me to an insane asylum. I would rather go to an insane asylum than Alcoholics Anonymous. I would, like, I'm just being honest." Like, and she was like, "Do you want to change your life?" And I was hopeless enough at that point that I was. And so she said, "Every morning, 6:30 a.m., there's a meeting right up the street from your house. Your butt is in that seat every single day." And I went, and I sat in the back and I judged. And then one day, this woman told my story, and she didn't look like me, and she didn't have the same background as me, but she felt like me. And she talked about how she worked this program, and she got a sponsor, and she started to work these steps. And then she started to feel a little bit better sober, because it's not about the drinking and the using. It's how I feel sober. Because if I don't change the way that I feel sober, I'm going to pick up again. It is only a matter of time. So I started to take some suggestion. I got a sponsor at, well, that's not entirely true. I was fighting the sponsor thing for a while. I was like, "You know what? I can do this thing on my own. I'm going to," and the woman who brought me into the program had 15 years, but she was doing church. She had 4 kids, plus she just adopted 2 from Africa. She was like really encouraging me to find somebody more active in the program. And so, I was just taking my time, because I wanted them to look, act, and smell like me, and really wasn't open to the idea of sponsorship, because it's just not really, I'm just a self-will run riot. That is me to the T. So at 90 days sober, this guy comes into my meeting and I'd never seen him before. He is fresh out of rehab. I didn't even really know what rehab was. And he and I went out to breakfast the day after that we met. And he put his hand on my hand and he said, "You're going to be my wife." And I said, "I know." And we got married 3 weeks later. And I didn't like tell anyone. I just was basically, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I feel like these are the promises coming true. I saw the promises on the wall. I hadn't worked one step, and really just thought that this is what happens. You come into the fellowship, you go to some meetings, and you get sober and life gets better. I had no idea that that's like the tip of the iceberg, that really, you're feeling better happens from the actual work that you do. That was like a placebo from hanging out with a bunch of happy people, but whatever. So he and I get married. It doesn't work out. He ends up relapsing. I'm devastated. I have like 6 months now, and I'm like gonna drink. And that really forces me to go get a sponsor because I am in so much pain. And she basically told me, you can't just divorce this guy. Like, you just played God. She's like, you're going to sit in this. We're going to do some inventory on this. You need to get some physical separation and some abstinence from him. And we're going to sort through this. Cause I wanted to annul it. I wanted you to delete him from my life. This wasn't really a thing. This never happened. And, thank goodness she made me sit in it, do the work around it. And, that was a really painful thing for me. But because of that, and because of her direction, I have worked all 12 steps. I have, had incredible transformations. It's mind blowing. I'll have 7 years in November. And I have a relationship with God, with myself. I was literally with my little nephew today, taking him mountain biking. My family didn't want me around ever. And, I own my own businesses now. I show up for people. I have, a sense of self-worth that I've never gotten. And I know that I'm so new, and I'm still having, these amazing revelations. And I, spend an hour with God every single morning. It's something that I cherish, that if I don't spend time with God, you do not want to spend time with me. Like, it is ugly. But I can tell you for certain that Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps, sponsorship, and the fellowship has been the best thing that has ever happened to me. And I'm so thankful that it didn't think of me what I thought of it, because it has been accepting, loving, and has always been there. And when I didn't have anywhere to go for Christmas and Thanksgiving, I went to AA, and I never, ever want to forget that. And I never, ever want to stop giving back to this program and helping people and inspiring people and letting them know that just because I might have a little time or a little less time, we are all doing this thing one day at a time. And we are all the same, 6 inches away from a drink, from my mind to my mouth, 6 inches away from a drink. And that this is about really changing my behavior, having a relationship with God, and having a relationship with fellows. So I don't know if that helps you guys. I'm forever grateful that I can tell my story, and, maybe my liabilities will be one of your assets that you'll be able to learn from one of my mistakes. But I'm, you can find me on Instagram, SoCalCat, SoCalKatt. I own some treatment centers, Laguna Shores, Laguna Coast, and, am forever grateful for this thing that, saved my life. And I know that I can't keep it unless I give it away. So feel free to call me or, reach out to me. SoCalCat is my Instagram handle, and I'm happy to help however I can. Thank you so much.